Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, November 30th. November's been quite an interesting month across much of the nation with lots of cold air and some early season snow. We have, of course, had a significant snow event in the Mid-Atlantic region during the middle part of the month. Unusually early, unusually high amounts. And there was the earliest snow ever recorded in some unusual places way down in the deep south like Houston, Texas, Monroe, Louisiana. Of course, the Central Plains and upper part of the Midwest and New England experienced some significant snow also in the last 5 to 10 days or so. California started off with very dry conditions during the first half of the month. Of course, devastating wildfires in that region. Then the pattern shifted there to a wetter pattern, and they'll have another storm to deal with by the middle part of next week. And that storm could become a snowstorm in the eastern U.S. next week, and I think there's a decent chance for that right now. We have a lot of cold air to deal with over the next couple of weeks as we begin the month of December. First of all, let's take a look back at the month of November so far. This particular map of 2-meter temperature anomalies for the month of November from weatherbell.com shows just a tremendous widespread area of colder than normal conditions, not only in the U.S., but down into Mexico and Canada as well. Very impressive indeed. Some of these areas are 4 or 5 degrees Celsius below normal for the month. That, of course, will not change much at all with this last day of the month, but quite impressive. Only California, really, in the U.S. showing up as above normal in terms of temperatures. And again, some early season snow of note during the month of November, with significant snow in many parts of the country for the month of November. The Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S., the Central Plains, upper part of the Midwest, even the southern states saw some early season snow. And again, we mentioned earlier, some areas, the earliest snow, measurable snow ever, way down into the deep south. Well, let's now focus on the upcoming pattern as we move into the month of December. Very interesting weather pattern shaping up. There certainly will be a lot of cold air around for the central and eastern U.S. during the first couple of weeks of December. A couple of storm threats, one perhaps in the Tuesday-Wednesday time frame, but more likely a more important, a more serious storm threat comes next weekend in the time frame of the 8th, 9th, and 10th. That could become a snowstorm in the eastern U.S. Let's first take a look at the 850 temperature anomalies going forward using the 0Z ensemble run of the GFS. First of all, right now, above normal temperatures for the most part in the U.S. Let's keep moving forward. These maps, by the way, from tropicaltidbits.com, remains relatively mild in the eastern third of the nation going into the weekend. We, of course, have a rain event coming for the I-95 corridor, for example, from D.C. to Philly to New York City, beginning by midday, generally on Saturday, going into Sunday morning. Then temperatures could really surge Sunday afternoon into the 60s in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, perhaps with some brightening skies as that storm system pulls away. Again, 65 degrees possible for highs on Sunday afternoon in the big cities. Let's move forward here. Notice, it starts to turn colder than normal out in the central and western part of the U.S., and that colder air starts to move in, advancing into the eastern U.S. by about Tuesday of next week, probably highs closer to 40 degrees in the big cities on Tuesday as compared with 65 degrees on Sunday. And that cold becomes quite expansive. Look at this. By the middle of next week, we have colder than normal conditions generally throughout the nation. And let's keep moving forward here. Another cold air mass dropping into the northwestern U.S., the northern plains by the latter part of next week. And this takes us into next weekend with generally colder than normal conditions in the eastern half of the nation. This is a week from tomorrow, next Saturday, December 8th. This could be the time where it could get very interesting in the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S., much of the eastern U.S., and more on that over the next couple of minutes. Well, now let's take a look at the 500 millibar height anomalies from the 0Z ensemble run of the GFS going forward here, beginning with early Friday morning. And not a heck of a lot going on today. There's a weak disturbance coming through. It could cause a little bit of light rain shower activity in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Nothing at all significant. Let's now move forward in 6-hour increments And first of all, notice pretty good upper level lows showing up by the latter part of the weekend over the Central Plains. There will be, by the way, another significant snow event later this weekend in much of the Central Plains. Kind of similar pattern to last weekend, where accumulating snow fell from Kansas City to southern Wisconsin and Chicago. Kind of a similar pattern with rain in the east and snow in the middle part of the country over the upcoming weekend. Then we get the colder air. Notice before we had that colder air arriving in the eastern U.S. around Tuesday or so. And that'll be the first storm system to watch. There certainly is a sign for a low pressure area down across the Mid-Atlantic or even into the southeastern part of the U.S. come Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Something to watch. Not as big of a threat as what I believe is coming next weekend, but certainly a close call in the Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Now notice out here in the eastern Pacific Ocean by the middle of the week. This is the storm to watch for the latter half of next week going into next week. And first of all, it'll move into California by the middle part of the week, right in this time frame here. Now we are at Thursday afternoon here. Again, a major storm looks like it'll pound California first, middle part of next week, maybe Wednesday, Thursday time frame. And that system then basically moves across the southern half of the country. And by the time we get into next weekend, here we go, there's some signs of it here. And this, again, is a pretty long-range forecast, so things can tend to dampen out in the ensemble run as you go ahead in time. So this will end up being a deeper low in the upper part of the atmosphere, I believe, by next weekend. And that is the time frame right in here where we have to watch in the eastern U.S. Again, we're talking about next Saturday, Sunday time frame, the 8th or 9th, give or take another day or so. That is a serious threat, in my opinion, for perhaps a snowstorm in the eastern U.S. Well, now let's take a look at the surface forecast maps. This is, again, using the 0Z GFS. There are some changes between the 0Z and the 6Z. I always favor the 0Z and the 12Z model runs because they have the very latest upper air data, the latest radius-on data is fed into the 0Z runs and the 12Z runs, so I tend to favor those over the 6Z and 18Z runs. And again, you'll notice with respect to this upcoming weekend, next weekend, a potential storm, big differences between the 6Z GFS and the 0Z. I favor the 0Z at this point in time. First of all, let's take a look at this morning. Dry right now, but again, there can be some light rain shower activity. Nothing significant this afternoon into tonight. Mostly cloudy, a cold day, colder than normal. And here we have a more important storm by tomorrow morning, centered out over the middle part of the nation. Again, setting up for significant snow across the Central Plains, a little bit farther to the north and west, perhaps, compared to last weekend. Rain moves into D.C. probably by midday and into Philadelphia by the afternoon. And in all areas, the heaviest rain comes late tomorrow afternoon or especially tomorrow night. And it looks like that'll continue into Sunday morning. By Sunday afternoon, chance for some brightening skies, certainly in D.C., potentially in Philadelphia, maybe even in New York City come Sunday afternoon. One thing that is certain, temperatures will surge following this rain event in the big cities. D.C., Philadelphia, New York City on Sunday afternoon, we'll see temperatures into the low or even middle 60s. Again, 65 degrees possible for highs in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City on Sunday afternoon after the rain ends. Let's now move forward here. We talked about an initial storm threat in the Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, and here it is right here. The 0Z GFS model run actually throwing some snow into the D.C. metro region. Not sure about this yet. This is something we'll have to monitor again in the Tuesday night, Wednesday time frame. But then here we go by Wednesday morning. Here's that big storm, Eastern Pacific, about to slam into California, and that then will move basically from west to east across the southern half of the nation, and cold air meanwhile certainly in place across the northern half of the nation. Here we go by next Friday and then into Saturday. And again, this is still the speculation stage, but I do believe the pattern warrants the possibility of a snowstorm in the eastern U.S. next week, and still several days away. Lots can change, but there are reasons to believe that something like this can happen. Here we go. This is now next Saturday night time frame, and we're talking December 8th, December 9th, still a ways to go. I like to see this kind of a high pressure. Anybody who's followed my video discussions over the years know I often talk about high pressure to the north being a necessary requirement for snow in the I-95 corridor. A perfect setup right here with what I often call a banana-shaped high extending from the Central Plains all the way into the northeastern U.S. Something to watch for. The potential exists for something important next weekend. Stay tuned not only later today, but for the rest of the weekend and next week for this potential storm system next weekend. And of course, we'll monitor the possibility of something in the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Orian.